Song here, and I wanted to talk about this story that's just coming out where this woman had taken her baby to Rome in 2014 on Easter, which was April 20th. Hold on, let me check. Okay, April 20th. So let's see. So April 20th is the 110th day of the year, and there are 255 days remaining. So September 12th is the 255th day of the year with 110 days remaining. 2012 was a leap year, but 2014 was not. So in the article she says that, I can't play it for you, but if you would like to come here to this, it's I'll put the link in the description. So just to be frank about it, I do believe that miracles can happen. So that's not what I'm investigating here. I'm just looking at the gematria to see why the story came out at this time, to see if there's any other tie-ins to other stories that are happening. So the mother, Lynn Cassidy, she said that her daughter, or they told the Pope, her daughter had 2 holes in her heart, and that her husband, when the Pope picked up her child, here's the official photo, and he touched her heart, that the Pope asked her husband, how old is she, what's her name, and he told the Pope that she has 2 holes in her heart. So 2 holes in her heart. This is the number that jumps out at me in the simple gematria, because this is one of the streets where the Mecca stampede and sacrifice, or whether it was true or not, or whatever happened in Mecca, that they reported 717 people dying, and they died on the corner of this street, which is a Skull and Bones number, and the 204 street. And I did do my report before I saw Casey Brown's report. I did go to his page, but his report had come out a day earlier than mine, so it didn't show up for me on his new videos, and so I didn't see it. And I just didn't see his report before I did my report. But I'm glad that, it should be normal that people reporting on these things would eventually come out with some similar numbers, because these are pretty noticeable. So anyway, this story comes out, and it also has a Skull and Bones number in it, which is also a Synagogue of Satan number. And I don't know what the Pythagorean gematria of this is, but here is a 121, and that might have been, I had been saying that a 121 was the Synagogue of Satan number. I haven't been doing the Pythagorean gematria, so I was just quoting what I had heard from Zachary K. Hubbard about those numbers having to do with 121. And it looks like it's a 121 gateway to me. There are other associations here having to do with Freemasonry, which might be worth, just becoming familiar with, so that when we see this number, we kind of know what else is matching it. That way we can make cross references eventually. So here she says, the Cassidy family waited for hours at the barricade. When the motorcade turned into the square, Lynn's husband held Ave up into the air. It was like Lion King, Lynn said. Now see, this is kind of an unusual thing for someone to say. Kind of candid, but to reference a Disney movie in a moment like this, when you have a tragedy of a young child and you're wishing for a miracle or this kind of thing. I mean, it's possible she could have said this, but it is a little bit out of the grave and hopeful feeling of this moment. So it was like the Lion King has the reverse of the Skull and Bones number. It also has 144, as in 144,000 here, and some of these other numbers that this is a 922. You could see it that way if you think of one as the core and others as the outer valence field. This phrase about the Lion King matches the Lord Jesus Christ. So that is what I think is not a coincidence. Philosopher's Stone, JFK, the way it's spelled here, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Now, the other tie-in with John Fitzgerald Kennedy that I've just discovered has to do with the Benjamin Parkway. It points, I think it's, Casey has been talking about that maybe this is a a tree of life, and I think that's a good observation. And I know that he's right that Benjamin Franklin was aware, was Kabbalist, and hopefully he was a good Kabbalist, but I haven't, done a lot of research on him. But the other thing that I notice about that area, Benjamin Parkway, is it's right by the lips of Isis, and there are a lot of there's a lot of Egyptian artwork showing her, especially when she's holding her child Horus, having the ankh put to her mouth. So I was kind of looking at that in terms of maybe it's an ankh too. But one thing is the very bottom of the ankh, if it is an ankh, it could also be the tree of life. But here, let's go look at it. So this, let me just see when the Pope's going to be here. Okay, so he's going to be here on the 27th. So in terms of the JFK aspect of the miracle healing of this child in Rome a few years ago, and I will do all the date numbers and everything, this is a JFK plaza or something like this. So I wanted to show you, first of all, this is looking up towards the head of the ankh. And then let's turn around and see if I can look the other way. Okay, hold on, I'll just pause it while I do that. All right, well, I had trouble going around the other way, and it looks like it's not a straight shot because there's this building, Philadelphia City Hall, at the bottom. And then this is a JFK Plaza, and it has this picture in it. And I want to show this to you because I've seen this picture tell me in the comments if you've seen this around your city, because I've seen this around my city in different places, almost like different corporations are kind of picking it up to liven it up for this time, to re-energize it. So I'm curious if that's happening where you're living. Let's go back out here to show you this yellow it's yellow up here because of the overlay that I have here of Isis in Philadelphia. Let me show you. Okay, so I have a whole nother video on this, and I want to show you. So she's here, she's holding the child. I would say that this was the Virgin Mary, except for from my studies and finding this picture all over the world. What happens is that she actually ends up matching Isis in most cases, especially in the coat of arms and some of the deeper meanings. She matches Isis, and then the Virgin Mary is more growing out of that concept, because in the original Christians, the Syrians, they called her Marie, and it was based from Isis. So we have to realize that a lot of things in Christianity have been borrowed from older sources, and this is also one of them. So I wanted to show you where this is, where the Parkway is here on her face. Okay, so here's her lips. Now Isis is supposed to be the embodiment of Venus, which is the 00, and she has a 3003 freeway coming out of her mouth, and she's also, according to the Illuminatus Observer, who has a wonderful blog that I'm trying to learn from, she's the spoken word. So it's interesting that the Parkway is right here in her mouth area. There's also, let me find this other picture for you. So oftentimes, as we see it here, she is healing with it because she's a healer. We also need to reiterate that I don't think the Egyptians were sun worshippers, and when people call the Vatican Church sun worshippers, I think they're still making the same mistake. This is their home star. This is where they come from. This is where the Nephilim come from. They're not worshiping our sun, and the Vatican really isn't worshiping our sun either. So this is Isis and Horus, and she's healing him with an ankh. An ankh represents the four original sounds of creation, just like in Genesis. First there was the word, so the four original sounds and their opposites. And here is more of an ancient Egyptian tree of life involving the Jed and the ankh, and it's either holding up or worshiping what I believe that this is the Star of Ra. That's just my theory. I'm just working on my theory, and I'm okay with being wrong, because I'm just trying to figure things out honestly as I go along. So for now, I really feel like this is a Star of Ra, and that's where they come from. There are other pictures of Nephilim in Egypt pointing to the Star of Ra and showing that that's where they came from. So here's the picture that it reminded me of when I saw this possibly being an Ankh, the Benjamin Parkway possibly being an Ankh, and it's in the face of Isis. Now it could also be a tree of life, and as we have seen, it could be both of those things. This picture shows it's supposed to be Thoth, and these are DNA, pieces of DNA, and it's symbolic about the conception of Horus, the meeting of the two pieces of chromosomes. So this would be the 23 and the 23, and the completion of the 23 having to do with conception. So all symbolism that might be very worth paying attention to right now. And Thoth's also holding he's holding an Ankh that has a saw aspects to it, either that or that's just the background of that glyph showing through. The ancient Cathars, not ancient, but they were early Christians that were killed by the Vatican Church. They also used the Ankh as their cross. And they also honored the Holy Spirit as the mother of Christ. So if this was an Ankh, it wouldn't be the first Ankh that I have found. I found one in Paris, near the womb of Isis, and if you want to check out my video about that, it's quite compelling. There's a lot of 923 numbers having to do with her womb over there, and she appears to be pregnant with twins. I have no idea what any of this means. I'm just sharing with you as I go along. This is a shape of a trident in here, and we see often in the ancient artwork that they point this trident at the Star of Ra, so that would be what they were worshiping. I haven't really seen the Star of Ra being below the Ankh, and that's what this looks like this is. Now, however, if you draw this out the whole way, which I've done, this goes up to above the Manitoba Parkway at the source of the water up there, and I think it's Winnipeg. And there's a convergence of a lot of ley lines up there. There's a replica of Solomon's Temple. It's a very important area, and I do think that the Freemasons feel that that is like the origin of birth waters in quite a few respects because of the drawings. There's another drawing up there of a man with a beard, and I've drawn that out for you. So there's quite a few videos of mine that you can reference if you'd like to learn about some of the greater symbolism in this area. I think that when we look at Benjamin Parkway, we need to take the face of Isis into consideration, that she is here. They've put her here for some reason. So, but also that the Ankh does form the tree of life, as I've just showed you. So it could both be the Kabbalic tree of life, because Benjamin Franklin was Kabbalic. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But Isis has the Egyptian cultural root, which I believe that our Freemasons and our Illuminati are basically Egyptian. I think that they feel like that is the true religion, the religion of the wise, and they keep it hidden for themselves, and then they package a Disney version for everybody else, and they change the names and the stories, and they add human guilt into it, and they kind of twist it around, causing humanity to stumble, whereas they hold the true teachings for themselves, and they consider humanity to not be worthy of these secrets. So this is where we were, JFK. Now this is why I brought this up from the story where we were, because there's a tie-in here. And also we know that JFK was assassinated. He was born in 1936, I believe, so it's pretty close right here. But he was assassinated, which makes it a sacrifice, and then these numbers are often associated with sacrifice. So we would just want to keep that in mind when we're looking at these events. So this is the phrasing, in case you've forgotten. Oh gosh, I see the writing on the wall of, I think this is the writing on the wall for ancient Babylon. So that's also there. We have Horus, the all-seeing eye, So this is all in this statement, just like the Lion King. So she throws that in, and I don't think that it's just an accident that she throws it in. Yom Kippur, blood moon. So I wanted to show you that JFK tie-in and what it might have to do with the Pope, since this article is about the Pope. Okay, so there's a distance of 521 days from the day of the healing in Rome for this baby and this day. I don't know what day they brought this story out. Let's see. Yeah, 923. 74 weeks is their God number. This is also kind of close to a 522. No, it would be a 520 if it was the 4. Let's see. Oh, my brain doesn't work like that. No, it would be 522 for 924. I really want to know about the shadow in Capitol Hill. I want to see a video about that. So this is the baby's name. You can see these numbers here. And you might remember what I've said about these. Spirit of 76, having to do with Gilgamesh, astral travel. This would be a 1-8. This would be the Bride of Christ type of number, the 618 and the 816. The 816 is reversed phi. And I call that the Bride of Christ number because I've done a lot of research on these events in the summer that have to do with these numbers in their various anagram forms, and I finally realized that there were Bride of Christ themes going through all of these, and then I have a few videos on this, so you can go back and check for the background on all of this. But stock is 68, market is 68, stock market is 816, and when 816 shows up in the Georgia Guidestones, a lot of these stories, the twin skeletons below the Hoover Dam, and here it is with Ave. Well, if we scroll down, we find something that I thought was a little bit interesting. In Ave's name matches Pope Franciscus the First. Now, there's supposedly never been a other pope named Francis, so I think they're referring to this very same pope here. So the anti-date of Easter is September 12th, and that means there's 110 days remaining to the end of the year, and this does play a role with what we've been talking about in terms of the Ankh, because the Ankh was used by the Albis or the Cathars, and Albi means small, white, elfish person, and there was an Albigensian crusade where the Pope slaughtered and burned these people. And they have, I've studied their castles, and their castles have headings, and it's all really, really amazing and revealing about gateways and gateway numbers and what the messages that these people left behind in their architecture. Well, here, Peter II of Aragon fought on their behalf against the royals from the north, and I guess he was defeated on this day. And I think that I do like to try to bring in these anniversaries, because I know that just like they pay attention to the numbers in all things, they do pay attention to the anniversaries and the anti-dates. Now, I have noticed that Christians are tying this story to him being the false prophet. It's very likely. You know, he wouldn't be the only one. If he was the false prophet, it would make all Christians and Catholic preachers and priests false prophets. And that is, I think, very close to the truth. However, so it just want to tell you that, so that's what the Christians are doing, that they're saying that he's a false prophet because he's working miracles. I kind of think for him to work a miracle, he'd sort of have to declare it maybe in advance, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the criteria is for miracle working. So as we go along, I'm kind of realizing that this story is probably completely made up. Maybe this child did recover, and God bless her. I hope she did, and I think that you know, Joshua said we would all work miracles. We would do these things and more. So I don't think we need to get really superstitious or worried about, you know, miracles. And hopefully, you know, maybe this mother's love or the father's faith is what caused this miracle. But when they wrote this story, I think they changed everybody's names, which, you know, probably just to protect the innocent. However, I don't know if this family would know that their name has been changed. The mother's name now has the same gematria as Georgia Bergoglio. I don't think that's a coincidence. And Nostradamus and Ark of the Covenant. We've seen these combinations of these numbers, haven't we? Sitting Bull. numerology. So maybe Lynn Cassidy isn't her real name, and maybe they just said, okay, we're going to change your name to Lynn Cassidy, and she said, all right, but she doesn't know what's happening with the story here. So according to the story, Lynn was explaining this and for the article, and she said it was raining, and we were told that if we stood by a barricade in St. Peter's Square, that the Pope would come by in his Popemobile. So she might be a very good writer and speaker and helping set the scene for the listener, or it could be that she had these words put into her mouth and they were exactly numerically significant words. This is phi squared right here. Phi squared 2.618. It's an anagram for it. They will use anagrams, so don't think I'm crazy for using anagrams. And then this is an 888. This is actually a Cathar Christ number, but the Nazis have kind of taken it and turned it into a death and danger number. So it was raining happens to match 44. Barack Hussein Obama. This is actually spelled wrong, so cancel on that. Yom Kippur, Sagittarius, King Solomon, the secret key, the mark of the beast, and Prince William. So this is the drumbeat that's going on behind this story. So everybody's just eating this story up and just taking it, it's like they're taking a big sip out of a yummy drink, and but they don't know that there is a hypnotic symbolic and frequency programming that's going on behind this story that they are unknowingly aligning themselves with. So USA Today has this 106 number that we have seen again and again in lots of encodements from all over. From basically, I first noticed it in the Philadelphia train wreck, but it's basically everywhere. Here's the Jewish gematria equivalents for USA Today. And so when you see USA Today, these are the kind of the things that you are associating it with, but you may not realize it. 106 is associated with Metatron, Prophecy, Infinity, Fox News, Soulmate, Columbus. There's the Pope's going to be by Columbus Circle over there on Washington Central Park. Central Park has gematria of 119 or 911, and I just did a video about the alignment on the ends of Central Park also being in a 119 alignment or a 911 alignment, having to do with 9/24, which is today. So maybe they're just going to plan sacrifices there's just going to be a sacrifice anniversary. I think that the sacrifice for this one was actually the Mecca one, because the numbers were all over that. So I was hoping nothing was going to happen, and I think that did happen. Hopefully, maybe we could hope that it really didn't happen and they just made a story about it. But maybe it really did happen, because when you look into the story of the religion, it looks like that it's all about temptation for sacrifice. So it really ties in with the symbology of this day and their religion and what those pilgrims were doing at the time. It could be there's a dark oath or a dark ritual that by doing these things, when you do these rituals having to do with religion, you don't know what you might be agreeing to, and maybe maybe in some way when they are throwing rocks at something that is disagreeing with sacrifice, then they are actually agreeing for their own sacrifice. You see what I'm saying? Kind of scary. Okay, that's good to know. Heil Hitler. I probably knew that, and then I just have to learn it again. Nefertiti. So here it says that Phoenix, this was, was published in Phoenix, and then it's interesting that Phoenix, if you scroll down here, has a tie-in to Lion King. And this is what I say when they are creating these frequency events that are more like Celtic knots. They go around and around and around. Roman eagle. So then you can start to tell the difference between something that arises naturally, which I'm pretty sure we could tell pretty quickly that this one wasn't going to be natural. And there is another tie and a turn. So it's interesting that, to me, that the Pope would ask, how old is she and what's her name? I know he might be just trying to make some friendly small talk. But I always think it's interesting. Small talk is really interesting and awkward. But so we looked up, let's look up how old is she. and it matches the Gematria Bible, Washington, D.C., in the beginning, the Eye of Horus, mind control, and the Great Pyramid, among other things. But the most telling reason for this is this count up number. They love these count up numbers, and there are quite a few count up numbers and count down numbers in the Pope's visit in the in Philadelphia. And so it would be good to remember, for me at least, that 1, 2, 3, 4 equals witness, the end of human history, poetic justice. Some of these, it just gets weirder from there, but this number is pretty important to them. So what's her name is the other question that the Pope asked, and that has a match to the Key of David, the Bohemian Grove. I think this is spelled wrong, but I think it has all the right letters in it. Thelemic order, this is a religion that worships the number 93, I believe. Gematria Hebrew Gematria, Prince Harry. All right, well, I hope there really is truly a happy ending for this family, and I wish that they would stop coding things behind here and just use, either uncoded names, or, maybe they don't want to use other people's names. But this is a portrait of Pope Francis kissing Ave in the hallway of Cassidy's hallway. You could keep doing these gematria things just keep going. There's a lot more in here. All right, well, I hope you like this video, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, so I forgot to look up Easter for you. That should have been a really obvious one to do, and it is a 68. So the Easter is the same as Stock Market and Morgan. A lot of these things that we've seen this summer, and so this is actually a really good thing to end this video on. It equals Barack Obama, Shalom, Benjamin. We have the Benjamin Parkway that I just showed you. Sophia, July, and July 4th is the 7th floor number that we've seen in here. Morgan, Marduk. I've been talking a lot about Marduk. Marduk took on the title of Ra, and he was the one who started the Vatican. He was the ruler of the Nephilim during the age of the Ram. This story of Easter has to do with the Nephilim during his time. The Logos, Muhammad, all of these things are so in the mix right now. Market, Amun Ra. When you're in church or at home finding your meal, when you say Amen, you are saluting Amun Ra, and I believe that Amun Ra is Marduk. And if we look at this in terms of esoteric connections, we can start to wonder if there's an esoteric connection between Marduk Ra and Barack Obama. Barack Obama does tie to Akhenaten, some ancient Egyptians, and there a lot of strange things happened back then, and I'm not really clear on most of the Nephilim have an Egyptian name and they have a Jewish name. So I think that Amun Ra's is Marduk Ra's Egyptian name, and I don't know how that relates to Akhenaten. But these guys reincarnate, as we can see. So here's the ancient Anunnaki tree of life, and I've showed you a picture before that was that it credits to Wayne Herschel from his wonderful site hiddenrecords.com. If you need some birthday presents for smart people in your life, the Hidden Record is such a good book. Lots of color, lots of amazingness in there, and also, of course, Pi and the Alphabet, and some of these other back to the books that I've been bringing you make really good Christmas presents, because I know it's hard to shop, but you can bring somebody onto a new path. I think it's a gift if you help bring someone out of the brainwashing and show them basically what's being hidden from them. This is the Kabbalah tree of life being laid over the Anunnaki or Nephilim tree of life. So this is a picture from Wayne Herschel's Facebook, and you can follow him on Facebook. He's always doing something amazing, and he does a really good job of working beyond Vatican-sanctioned documents. He's able to dig back farther to the ancient documents to find similarities and to try to find the truth. I don't think you're going to be able to find the truth if you're spinning in circles within the Bible, because that is printed by the Vatican for the commoners. The Vatican is not God. So if they say that God wrote the Bible, they're actually considering themselves to be gods, which kind of fits in with the history of their culture. Well, here we have the Tree of Life with a spaceship over it, or the celestial ship, how the Egyptians show this. And then here in the Indonesian, we have a Tree of Life with 2 harpies below, 2 doves going up. These doves are flying up. When the Vatican shows the doves flying down, I think that's another disrespectful way of showing the Holy Spirit, just the same as it's disrespectful to constantly show Joshua in his moment of defeat at the hands of the dark. I know they make it off to be like, oh, we appreciate the sacrifice that he made. They can do that without constantly showing that. So they're showing him in a disrespectful pose, and everybody is going along with that. Okay, so here we see the doves flying upward. The Holy Spirit rises. It's an uplifting thing. And then we see a spaceship up here at the top. All of these have spaceships. I'm trying to move my... it won't let me move my little... Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, so then here's the Sumerian with the Tree of Life. I would love to know what these are. I think they're landing gear, and I think they turn into pillars, as we have seen in the Herod's coin. And I have Herod's coin in my outro, and it shows kind of wavy things coming off of this, and that's kind of the Vatican symbol, where it has like it looks like a hat with wavy things coming off of it, maybe over here. And then I think they turn into pillars. I saw a Jewish temple, and I was looking around at all of the symbolism on the outside of it, and on one of its doors, it had this very symbol right here. It had it, except for the Vatican shows it more like a flat hat. They had it more like Herod's coin, where it's more of a classic dome shape, and it had these viney, they're called cosmic serpents coming off of it. And then the Vatican shows them being in knots. Knots are magical type of spell making sort of things. And then this is their Tree of Life. It has an S and a D on there, and I don't know why. Probably, I don't know, a snake in the dome. I'm not sure. So here's a little bit of the idea of Easter. So I think that Nimrod and Semiramis have this is their Babylonian name, and their Anunnaki name is Semiramis, I think, is Inanna Ishtar. And she, I believe, was her husband was Nimrod, which would make I can't remember who Ishtar's husband. Okay, wait, it's on the tip of my tongue. Hold on. Nope, I can't remember it. But so this is just basically they just basically repackaged this story of Inanna Ishtar, Marie, Isis, and her husband, whose name I can't remember in Anunnaki, but in Babylonian his name is Nimrod, and then they had a child, Tammuz, who is believed to be the only begotten son of the moon goddess. Now, it's not the moon. That is a distortion. So we have to face this, because we see Isis drawn everywhere. We have to face this. Isis is in your religion. When you say Amen, you are saluting Marduk Ra. Maybe that's who she married. I'm not sure. It's probably I do know it. It's just like my files are lost in my brain. Well, so, here we go. Osiris. Okay, yeah. So Isis, Osiris. What's his... Baal, Molech, I'm not sure about that. Alright, anyway, the sun god. So I don't know what his Babylonian story is. I knew it before, and it's been a long time since I've read that. But we need to face that these stories have been repackaged, and these are the early players, and that's why we have Isis and Osiris on the White House lawn, and not the Virgin Mary and God, basically, or the Spirit of the Lord. They're not on the White House lawn. So we need to look at this. Now here, this writer says the wicked ruler, and maybe he is a wicked ruler. But all of our information is handed down. So what we need to do is make sure that we always reference the ancient texts. So what you need to do, ancient Babylonians, they wrote a lot of stuff, and it's in museums. So you can try and find a trusted transcript of these, and you will find, if this is Marduk-Ra, yeah, he did. I don't know if it is Marduk-Ra or not. He, of course, wasn't the best king, but he also wasn't the worst, for sure, of the Anunnaki. He was somebody who protected his people from nuclear war, and it seemed like he had good intentions. It doesn't make him a god or anything. So these guys are like set up as gods, and that's the problem. These are just actually people. These are just, mixed DNA people from other planets. She's able to fly. She's able to shapeshift. She's basically another species from us. So you can see all the distortion in here. But if you think of this as evil, you won't be able to calm down and decipher it. And you need to go to the right source. If you go to a source that draws from the Vatican, they are going to call this evil. However, they are worshiping these things. So they're talking to you out of two sides of their mouth. They have ISIS everywhere. And we also have these very same rings in the Cernunnos. So this is all something we basically have to stop demonizing things and learn what they exactly mean. Okay, so the origins of Easter can be traced back to the pagan celebration known as the resurrection of Tammuz, or the resurrection of the reincarnation of Nimrod. The story is told that when Nimrod died, he had his body torn into pieces by his brother. Okay, so that's basically Osiris. His wife Semiramis reanimated his private parts, the phallus of Osiris, that's the Washington Monument, one last time, and became pregnant with an immaculate conception of the new son Tammuz. It has absolutely nothing to do with Christ's resurrection. Well, it kind of does, because they repackaged the story, because they turned Marduk-Ra into Zeus, and Zeus is the sun god. So they repackaged it as Jesus. So this is also a distortion, that it has nothing to do with Christ's resurrection, because that makes it seem like something is pure and something isn't pure. Jesus, Christ, basically means anointed one. So that means some of these anointed rulers. Well, who anointed them? The Nephilim did. The Nephilim anointed them. I'm sorry, but that's who did the anointing. And I think there was a true teacher named Joshua, and he may or may not have been anointed by the Nephilim. He was of the line of David. He came through a dark line, but he had true teachings, I believe. It's all speculation, because we don't know for sure. But we do know that Jesus was never written anywhere in the Hebrew Bible, and it was a bait and switch name change done by the Greek translation to basically take the name of Joshua and turn it into Jesus. And it's not a coincidence that their main god, their main solar god, is Jesus. Well, this guy here is a solar god. So to say it has absolutely nothing to do with Christ is another distortion. According to the Babylonian legend, Tammuz, son of Nimrod, was born on December 25th. And this could also be all symbolic, because we know that they like to take stories from the sky about stars and turn them into symbolic stories, and they're basically stories to help people learn about the stars. It could be that. This is also the reason that Christians celebrate the birth of Christ on the same day. This way, the church does not alienate current traditions and could still be appealing to those who celebrated the old customs. It's because they wanted to bring all of the grassroots religions in, possibly where the teachers of righteousness had incarnated in various cultures and taught these things, and a lot of people had similarities about what was taught, because possibly the reincarnations taught similar things. And then the Vatican needed to convert all of those religions into a religion that makes Christ exclusive and makes other people evil. So the Vatican tricked everybody. So it looks like the teacher of righteousness went to a bunch of different cultures, taught a bunch of different things, so that people would be brothers and sisters. When they met each other, they would realize that they were of the same family. The Vatican took that story, twisted it, and then taught its own people that everybody else was evil, wrong, and pagan. And so then they started burning people in a bonfire, and then we still have Christians today who don't understand what happened. And every Bible comes from the Vatican. See, in the Bible, it is not said that when Jesus was born because he was being hunted by King Herod, a fact that historians are actually not certain when Jesus was born. Leading up to Easter, we're saturated in symbolism and tradition, everything from rabbits and Easter eggs. The egg is an ancient Babylonian symbol for fertility, symbolizing the moon goddess. Not the moon. It's not the moon. This is either an exoplanet or this is the star of their exoplanet. That's why the Vatican does not worship the sun. They worship the star of Ra. Ancient Babylonians believed a huge egg fell from heaven into the Euphrates. I don't know. Maybe they did. I haven't really studied ancient Babylonian religion. If they did, I think they've got a false idea. I think maybe already the religion had been twisted from the time of the Anunnaki, and then it would be the Nephilim who had taught that. All right, so this is this website, you know, it does distort quite a few things, but if you want to check it out, it's therundownlive.com/the-real-meaning-of-Easter/, and I hope I'll put this in the comments, but sometimes I forget or get confused by that time. All right, hope you liked the video. Love you. Talk to you later.